Hello, Professor. My name is Quinn. Here is my identification. There we go. Today's topic is going to be systemic racism due to technology restrictions and requirements and lack of specification in the parameters. I'm just going to be reading my bullet points off of this, just flipping through. So if that isn't okay, please let me know after I submit this, because I'd be happy to go ahead and redo it for you. But without further ado, my paper is on systemic racism and its history in the United States and how it lives on today. So the question that is posed is, does the United States still have institutionalized racism? If it doesn't by any legal means, then how does it culturally continue the divide between the races? In this PowerPoint, in this paper, we will look to see that it does to a degree, although significantly less than in years past. It promotes the prolongation of it through the remembrance of history, disapproval of culture, and the ineffective measures of combating. The topic of racism and rights stems back to the founding of our country, and particularly the economic situation of colonial societies, that being resource extraction. The American colonies were really no different. But instead of making the native population do the extraction, there was the importation of slaves from West Africa from there to the colonies. And the colonists did their best to rationalize the institution of slavery. They accomplished it by tying the inferiority of the African to a passage in the book of Genesis where God curses the descendants of Ham, saying they shall serve their descendants shall serve his brother's descendants, Ham's descendants being the African race. The Civil War. I'll be showing you as I go the slides. So, the Civil War. With the newly elected president, and his main promise was one of emancipation for the slaves within the United States. This caused the southern states to pull out of the Union, fearing their impending economic collapse. The southern economy was almost entirely reliant upon slave labor. The war went back and forth until the North eventually won and freed the slaves. The aftermath of this war is where we get much of the modern institutionalized racism from the implementation of the Jim Crow laws. Next slide. The cultural result of this is the disapproval of Black culture. So from the Jim Crow laws, we see that Black people in America were disadvantaged through law, and even though eventually the federal government said, hey, you have to institutionalize all these things, through the Jim Crow laws, it made everything pretty difficult, and there was pretty much zero upholding of any federal laws that interfered with any of the interruption that the Jim Crow laws imposed. So, as we can see, and as history has moved on, there's been this stigma of a disapproval of Black culture. And as we can see, the vast majority of the so-called thuggish side of media is headed up by Black creators. When we hear music, the awful and disrespectful hip-hop, as some would like to call it, has become one of mass media's favorite things to talk about when approaching the idea of race relations within the United States. Contemporary American media promotes a post-racial paradigm where people are encouraged to believe that race is no longer a structurally embedded obstacle to individual success. The mediocratic belief of colorblindness persists despite abundant criticism and research against it that recognizes colorblindness as new racism that is subtly more institutionalized. Jacobson, 2015. Modern influences. With the disproportionate number in key areas that define success, we have seen that there has been a radical attempt to even out the playing field for Black youth when it comes to these areas like education and career opportunities. There have been many laws and rules put in place that give Black people a solely race-reliant advantage. For the longest time, that was affirmative action, with college admissions, and with race laws within the workplace. All these things have led to a misconception. You see, all these advantages have ended up hurting the Black youth population in many ways that were unintended by the system's designers. These systems that have been put in place have taken away much of hope for Black youth, for not being considered just as capable as their peers of different races. This has caused them to lose a whole lot of motivation. The designers of these systems, while attempting to help out a disadvantaged group, have underlooked their genuine abilities. There's no mental or cultural disadvantages or one they have in the eyes of the law. There's a dispute as to how to handle the problem, the greatest of which is the assumption of inferiority and need for help. This has manifested itself in the courts and legal system, as there's increased pressure on judges and juries to help out these disadvantaged people and be harsher upon those who are racially better off. The idea of institutionalized racism is a phony concept, as there's nothing that legally separates white from Black. But what we can see is a cultural separation in how to deal with the resulting issue of Black underperformance in certain fields. This has led to a lack of confidence and a prolongation of the problems. The results of this perpetuated idea of systemic racism has manifested itself within our legal system here in the United States and has given us much trouble in recent years. It has weakened the moral fibers of our courts and those who serve in them to be able to give one man legal advantage over another, all for the sake of misrepresentation of their race. In conclusion, there is a push in our legal system to give an extra advantage to those who are of the African American race, especially when it comes to instances in the legal system and in court hearings. As we have seen, there is no legal barrier, but there is a societal one that is caused by a population that doesn't believe in the people that they are trying to help. So, that is all that I have for you. Hopefully, this formatting worked. I'm not very good with technology, so PowerPoint all this stuff isn't really my deal, but if you have any further questions, if there's anything else you would like to see, if you want me to redo this because I flipped the phone around and whatever, just let me know, and I hope you have a great day.